money that they spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. An acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Yeah.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper-Leitch. You are listening to the live broadcast of Time for Hemp all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And we are going to be talking tonight pretty heavy topics. We're going to be talking a lot about banking and the money markets and the money system. And that is one of the reasons why I made it a point to get a hold of a very bright mind to be the joint host this evening, Paul Stanford. Paul, thank you for taking time for hemp.
Thanks for having me, Casper. Great to be here.
How's life in your slice of heaven tonight?
Oh, it's going great. I'm visiting family down in the Los Angeles area, and it's right outside Newport Beach here, and glad to participate.
Have you got a new update on Roger Christie for us?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do, and it's not good news. Roger Christie, for those you out there that don't know, is a activist in Hawaii. He's been in the Big Island of Hawaii for 25 years now. And he used to own a hemp store there, but about 15 years ago, he started the THC Ministry. And he's been working with people who believe cannabis is a sacrament and a special holy plant. I've got to count myself among those. I mean, we're talking about a plant that produces more fiber, protein, oil, and medicine than any other plant on this planet. And it's actually the first crop purposely grown by people. All archaeologists agree it was among the first crops grown by people. So it really might be responsible for civilization itself as we know it. And so anyway, Roger Christie was arrested about 6 weeks ago and charged with growing and selling marijuana. Now, he's 61 years old, and it's the first time in his life he's ever been arrested, and they're holding him in jail, saying he's a danger to the community, which is just outrageous, I think. I cannot understand how they can justify that. But the bad news that came down a couple of days ago is a bank of 3 judges for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals turned down his appeal for bail. And so he's being held without bail. And right now the trial isn't scheduled until, ironically, April 20th. And so he's going to be in there a long time if that doesn't happen. Now, there's going to be a protest next Wednesday in Hilo, Hawaii, a march. And I'm going to be in Hilo for that. And I know longtime activist Don Werkschafter is working on his case as well. So we'll just have to see what comes of it. But we're going to continue to fight to get him out on bail because it's just outrageous that they're holding him like this.
It sounds almost like it's against the law.
It should be. I mean, bail's a constitutional right, but apparently under the Bush II administration, they passed an omnibus bail act that says they can hold people for drug offenses without giving them bail, and he's being held under that provision.
Oh, my. Well, we got an address you can write to Roger on the front of timeforhemp.com. I encourage you to go there and check it out. One for Eddie Lepp and also for Mark Emring. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to be joined by Ellen Brown here at Time for Hemp. listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
Myself, but it seems like it's just moments since we met. I'm kinda high, let me introduce myself.
Yeah, baby, let me introduce myself. My name is Casper-leitch. The program you're listening to is Time for Hemp Live, all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Tonight on the program we have as my joint host Paul Stanford, founder of Hemp.org, and Ellen Hodgson Brown, brilliant author, lawyer, and someone who has studied the Federal Reserve and the money trust in depth. Ellen, that's a funny term, isn't it? Money trust.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Especially all that we've learned this past couple of weeks. It's been quite an amazing journey having you on each week.
Oh, thanks. I've enjoyed it myself.
And the last time you were on, you and Paul were in a very excellent discussion. Paul?
Hey, Jasper, and hey, Ellen. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, likewise.
So we were talking about potential models out there for this type of legislation to establish a state bank like they have in North Dakota. And you want to tell the listeners who might not have heard the last show about why the Bank of North Dakota is such a good thing?
Right. North Dakota is the only state that it currently has a budget surplus. It's the only state that, well, it has the lowest unemployment rate in the country, and it has the lowest default rate on its loans in the country. And it is the only state that owns its own bank. So North Dakota essentially has no credit crisis. Like all the rest of the country, the reason they have budget crises is that the banks aren't lending. They have a credit crisis. They aren't able to get the credit that all businesses use to run their businesses. People need it to buy homes, etc. So the source of the problem is in Wall Street because they cut off credit for various reasons. And in North Dakota, they have their own credit engine, which is the Bank of North Dakota, publicly owned. It has a mission statement that requires it to serve the public interest, unlike a regular bank, a private corporate bank, which is required to serve its shareholders. By law, any corporation must do the thing that will make the most money for their shareholders, regardless of what that would do for the community. And in North Dakota, the Bank of North Dakota, by law, it's mandated to serve the community and to follow it's got certain goals in its mission statement, including agriculture, and student loans, energy, I think, is another of its goals. So it develops these certain things. But it's there to serve the people, and it has served the people very well ever since 1919 when it was set up. And it was set up in a situation just like what we have now, where the Wall Street bankers were taking the people's money and they were foreclosing on their homes, and they realized that they wanted to keep their money in the state to use it for their own credit needs rather than allowing Wall Street to use that money to leverage into whatever right now they're using it to speculate with, because it's a much better deal for them to speculate than to make loans to businesses.
How is it that the whole banking system fell apart? You want to explain that just a little bit to our listeners, too?
Well, it started, the first we really were aware of it was the summer of 2007 when two Bear Stearns hedge funds went bankrupt, and they had to open their books. They had to sell their assets because they were bankrupt, and so they had to sell these things called collateralized debt obligations, which were bundles of mortgages that investors would buy off the banks. The very popular investment then, or up till then, and wrapped in a derivative, which meant it was protected supposedly from default by this derivative called a credit default swap. So what happened was these were bundles of subprime, really quite toxic mortgages, and the reason that the investors had been suckered into buying them was that they were told that the risk was sold off to another party. It was sold off, usually the hedge funds, and that was so that the counterparty on these credit default swaps would agree to pay up in the event of default. But in fact, what happened when there was widespread default was they just went bankrupt, and so they couldn't pay. So they put these collateralized debt obligations on the market, and nobody would buy them because they now realized they were fraudulent. Well, that meant if their collateralized debt obligations weren't worth anything, all those collateralized debt obligations sitting on the books of many banks around the world weren't worth anything. So suddenly, banks didn't trust each other anymore. They all knew that they were holding this bad, dodgy collateral, so they figured the other banks were too. So they wouldn't lend to each other. And the way the credit system works is that banks create loans. They basically create money on their books. The money goes out in the form of checks into some other bank, and then to cover the loan, they have to get some deposits in, and if they don't have the deposits, then they borrow from the other banks. So what they basically do is borrow back the money that they just created. So the whole bank system is dependent on being able to get very cheap money from the other banks. It's a shell game, and to cover the shell game, they have to always be getting in. They hustle around and find somebody that's got a P under their shell that they can borrow for the time being, like overnight loans. But nobody would lend. So there was a freeze. That was the initial freeze, was in the money markets, in the where the rate that banks were charging each other went way, way up, so that it was no longer you couldn't make money by making loans, because you'd have to pay more money to borrow the money that you were going to cover the loan with than you were going to get on the loan. So then they quit lending. So then there was a credit freeze. But the real credit freeze came in 2008. So it's a long story. But anyway, it was basically what went wrong was that the banks had this very dodgy stuff on their books, and they were suddenly found out. It was suddenly realized globally, and there was a shockwave going around the world that the banking system was no longer reliable. And so they all quit lending to each other, that meant there was no credit for us. The credit markets froze, so nobody could get decent funding anymore for homes, and so they quit buying homes, and they couldn't get the credit they needed to run their businesses, so they started laying people off, and that meant the workers didn't have the money to buy goods, and so there was no demand for products, and so that's the death spiral that is a depression. So that's the spiral we're in right now, where they can't seem to get that engine going again. They keep trying, but the Fed keeps trying to do quantitative easing, which people call printing money, but they're not really printing money. That's the problem. All they're doing is swapping money that the Fed creates on its books for...
Right, there's a big news story here today, the drop in the stock market because the world financial markets realized that the Fed wasn't going to be able to do anything to pull the U.S. out of this crisis, and it was going to continue for a while longer.
Well, funnily enough, the dollar is the strongest it's ever been. So I think what the Fed is doing is not working. But on the other hand, it is serving a certain purpose. It's not serving the purpose they say it's serving, which is to get credit flowing again. We're all just stuck without, the banks are still not lending. But the purpose it is serving is that as long as the Fed agrees to buy bonds, that's the thing. See, they're turning bonds into dollars. So the Fed just creates the dollars on their books, and then they buy the bonds with them. So basically they've agreed that any bonds that don't get sold, they'll buy them. So that means there's always a market for the bonds, and that keeps the interest rate very low. So as long as the interest rate is ridiculously low, as it is right now, on federal bonds, then the government can keep borrowing without any great disaster befalling. If interest rates went up, that would be a disaster because we have increased the federal debt by 50% since 2006, but the interest bill that the taxpayers are paying hasn't gone up at all. And the reason is that the interest rate was pushed way, way down. But it can't go any lower, and they don't dare let it go any higher because that would seriously change the bill that we're paying for interest, and then, then you'd have blood in the streets.
Well, now, what would help our economic system in any way? Would it help if each state did what North Dakota did and have its own banking system? Or is there something that the federal government could pick up from what North Dakota is doing to help turn this mess around and make the banking system more solvent and more useful to the population?
Well, ideally, yes, it would happen on the federal level. It could actually be fixed quite easily on the federal level, but it's just that we don't seem to have any say over the federal level, and they're always at an impasse. I mean, they're just fighting each other without coming up with any real solutions. Each party blocks the other party from doing anything. So that's why I think we need to do it at the state level, or as local as you can get, and do it. And then if we just had one good model, besides North Dakota, you've got North Dakota, so that makes an impression. And there are a lot of politicians now who are running on a state bank platform, and there are bills being drafted and so forth. But if a modern state now 90 years later did the same thing and turned their economy around suddenly, it would be so obvious that this worked that everybody else would follow. So that's what I'm hoping for, is that just one state will do it. Like Michigan is close, Washington State is close, Oregon, I guess, there are rumblings of things happening there. So there are a number of states where it might happen. The best model historically was in Australia. I just wrote an article on that. And what happened there, in the 1890s, they had this huge banking collapse, just like we have, but worse, because they didn't have any of the social controls that we have now, like no unemployment insurance, etc. And so in Australia, they decided to start a publicly owned bank. They decided, well, the private banks have failed, so we've got to set up a government bank here to get the credit flowing. And the first governor, Denison Miller, was a banker. The bankers were quite alarmed at this, the private bankers, because they were going to get competition from a bank that was actually going to serve the public interest, which meant it would undercut them necessarily. And so they thought if they put their own man in, it would be all right. So they put a banker in there. Well, as it happened, the banker had the foresight to see the potential of this bank and how he could save the country. And so he took it as his mission to use what he knew about banking and to use it to help the economy. And so he did dramatic things. But what it proved was he started out without any capital. They said, oh, you're going to need $1 million worth of capital at least. And he said, no, I'm going to start this bank with no capital. He said, I don't need capital. I'm going to lend the credit of the country. Because he understood that that's what banks always do. They always lend just their own credit, and they pretend that they're lending something else by getting deposits in real quick, to cover when the check goes out. They got to get some deposits in, and it looks like they've got as much money coming in as money going out. But the thing is, the deposit coming in is not the money that they lent. That belongs to the depositor, and the depositor can always come for that money. So anyway, he did that and proved that the whole banking system is really just a credit system. It's just the credit of the people. And he said, over and over, he would say, we can fund anything we can imagine. Anything we want, we can fund it because we're funding it with the credit of the Australian people. So basically what you're doing really with a credit system, if you could start fresh, what you're really turning into money is not gold or not somebody else's money that they already had. You're really monetizing work or monetizing infrastructure. You're monetizing the thing that you're building. In other words, the credit goes to build the thing, and then you pay off the thing with the credit, with the money that you made from the thing that you funded with your credit, if you see what I mean. In other words, you pay with these little receipts, like, okay, you just did a day's work, here's $100, or, here are chits showing that you did 8 hours worth of work. And then you can trade those chits for somebody else who did 8 hours worth of work. But anyway, you can use those to spend in the community for goods and services of an equivalent labor value, basically. And so you pay for your workers and materials with these, essentially with IOUs, but they're not debt. They're actually money. They show that you've already paid the debt. You've already done the labor. Now you're entitled to go and trade that with somebody else in the community.
Now, one of the things I thought was also interesting was that you had discovered in your research with medicine and being involved in a case that involved a man in some chemotherapy companies, that this money cartel is the same cartel that handles the medicine cartel, and it was also the same cartel that you and Paula talked about a couple of weeks ago. That's down in the third world. That's weird.
Yeah, well, depends on how conspiratorial you want to get, but at the top, I suspect, well, that it was the same, like the Bank of England was actually what killed the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Well, at least they slowed them up significantly. So there is a sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy or a cartel, that goes back several hundred years, where at first they dominated other countries by conquest, by literal physical conquest, and when they lost their colonies, when the colonies got physical independence, then they kept them enslaved or kept them colonized by debt, and that's still going on. They still do it by debt. So if you trace back our Rockefeller, of course, was Rockefeller's father or grandfather, I guess it was literally a snake oil salesman. I mean, he literally went around selling snake oil, and so he was a patent medicine man, and then Rockefeller was an oil man. So you've got, and all drugs are oil based, and they come from oil. So you've got
a good friend of mine, Dr. Todd Miccaria, one of the founders of the medical marijuana movement, past head of the National Institute of Drug Abuse, NIDA, back under President Kennedy. He called it monomolecular mercantile madness.
Right.
And warned about it. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But an interesting, dichotomy between the banks and the pharmaceuticals, and we're on time for hemp and how they've suppressed hemp and kept it out of it's another natural medicine that's shown clearly to cure cancer and wipe out tumors of all sorts. Recently banks have taken to attacking.
Paul, I hate to interrupt here, but you're coming in right at a time when we got to go pay the bills and listen to a little bit of music about marijuana. So when we come back, we'll pick up right where you're left off here at Time for Hemp.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188. and the site is HEMP.org.
I don't know about you, but when I cultivate my clones, I want to give each and every one the best chance to grow into a mature, healthy plant. But after a few cloning cycles, I experienced decreased root density, slimy stems, or even worse, no roots at all. Growers know that reusing cloning collars results in failed clones. And cleaning cloning collars between grow cycles requires extra work and decreases root density. That's why I use PermaClone. PermaClone collars have been engineered to prevent failed clones by providing heat-sterilizable collars, which fit easy clone, turbo clone, or power cloner systems. PermaClone collars can be dry heat sterilized, pressure cooked, or autoclaved to completely kill all bacteria and fungi without harsh chemicals. Start cloning with confidence today and visit us at permaclone.com. Put in the code T for hemp with your order and receive a 10% discount on your purchase.
Indigrow is your source for affordable induction grow lighting. First discovered in 1891 by Nikola Tesla, Indigrow lights deliver 11 years of electronic sunlight to your plants. Indigrow lamps require less than half the power of traditional HID lamps. Converting to Indigrow lights means you'll cut down on your power bill with less lighting. Indigrow lamps also use 5 times less mercury than traditional fluorescent or HID lamps, making Indigrow not only energy efficient but environmentally friendly as well. No more switching out lamps between vegetative and flowering stages. As nature intended, your lights get a steady dose of UV light. That makes your plants grow healthier and stronger. Indigrow products are manufactured in San Diego, California, and come with a written 10-year warranty. What Tesla knew, then growers know now, is that Indigrow lighting is the cost-effective addition to your victory garden. To learn more or order now, go to inda-grow.com. That's INDA-GRO.com, or call 877-452-2244 to answer any of your questions. These guys really know lights. Indigrow really is your sunlight in a box.
Have you ever had a problem with overcooking your cannabis oil? You probably wanted to rip your hair out when you burned off all the THC, right? I even cried one time when my brownies failed to make a good impression at the party. Well, I stopped crying when I found Magical Butter. Magical Butter is a device with a microprocessor-controlled program sequencer. It was designed by a scientist and a chemist to precisely extract the benefits of various herbs. Magical Butter easily makes botanical butter, oils, tinctures, lotions, sauces, and more. Magical Butter heats your oil and your herbs at the perfect temperature every time. Check us out at magicalbutter.com because it's magical. Okay, there's a lot of science and chemistry involved, but it sure works like magic.
Education and information. See what all the buzz is all about. It's time for hemp. It's time for hemp.
Keep growing weed. To Ed Rosenthal. Keep growing weed. Jack Hare. Keep growing weed. Soma. George Cervantes. Growing weed. It makes me happy, you see. With every big busting key. Because we need it indeed. Keep growing weed. So go ahead, plant that seed. For all the world to receive. Supplies the dispensary. Keep going, Daddy, don't turn back now. I believe it's time to get down. Keep going, Daddy, don't turn back now. I believe the plant comes from the ground. Cultivation, oh, these are fast. Smell the sauce, the buds can't wait for harvest. Growing tall as high as the sky. We lost marijuana, no time to get high. Like Jack and the hemp salt, this always true. Hemp will save the world, don't tell your whole crew. Grab your bowl and your weed and your key. I'm about to medicate and smoke with happy cheese. Weed, it makes me happy, you see. With every big busting key.
you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper-Leitch. You've been listening to Los Marijuanos with Pony Boy doing lead and his posse. And I had a chance to hang out with them up at the Toronto Expo, and they are an amazing group of people. We have been playing their music on Time for Hemp for a long time. On the program today, we have Ellen Brown, author and a very bright individual when it comes to dealing with money markets, the banking industry, and the Federal Reserve. And my joint host, Paul Stanford, a very bright mind about everything here at Time for Hemp. Paul, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we had to go pay the bills. You were getting ready to ask Alan a question.
Yes, paying those bills, that's a real necessity for all businesses. And, you know, the banking system basically holds us all hostage. We've all got to use it. We've all got to pay our bills and take part in it. And what I've seen lately is, medical marijuana businesses have been growing rapidly in all the states that have medical marijuana laws. And what's happened over the past few years as well, and just recently with the banking chain Wells Fargo, which I understand has received a lot of federal dollars, they are closing down all marijuana-related accounts. And they just come in and say, hey, we're closing these accounts. We can't tell you why, but we're closing it. You've got anywhere from 24 hours in some cases. I understand Bank of America did that, and I think U.S. Bank was closing them about 2 years ago with a month's notice. And now Wells Fargo's come up and given their marijuana-related customers 2 months' notice to find another bank. So, you know, I particularly run a multiple-state medical marijuana clinic where we don't have anything to do with growing and distributing herbs, but we have doctors who help medical marijuana patients. And so we provide medical services, but still we've been impacted by this. Well, first of all, you know, no credit whatsoever, but then now this just arbitrarily closing bank accounts, not just for us, and that's happened, but also, you know, for every business that just has the word marijuana in it. I had heard that Wells Fargo was going to do that through the media about 2 weeks before I got any sort of letter. And I had actually opened accounts with Wells Fargo based upon them guaranteeing at their district manager level that they wouldn't do that. And so I guess these things are coming out of the head offices of all of these banks. In the case of U.S. Bank, that was in Kansas City, Missouri. And with Bank of America and Wells Fargo, they're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, Ellen, what can we do about this kind of boycotting by the banking system?
Wow, I think you need to boycott the banking system. You could start your own bank. It's actually a good time to start a bank. You can buy another bank, you know, a bank that's either bankrupt or doing poorly. I think it takes maybe $1 million to get started, and then you would issue stock. You know, you might start with $10 million probably and then what you can do is you can make your own loans. You can take your deposits. I mean, I'm sure there are zillions of people who would like to put their money in a marijuana bank, if only as an act of rebellion, to have your own credit system. But then you can leverage that money just like any bank does. So you can create credit on your books and make loans to yourself for various things. You need to satisfy the rules. You got to cover those loans by getting in more deposits, but I think you could probably attract a lot of depositors if you build it right, you know, advertised it right in a certain way. What you particularly need to get it set up, you have to satisfy the regulators, the banking regulators, and so what they're looking for first and foremost to start with are some people that are well funded. You know, the directors have to be rich, basically,
right,
and who know about banking. You know, who have experience in banking. So you'd have to find those people, somebody that would do the banking business for you, because the regulators, I understand that if they look at your thing once, your application, and they reject it, you probably aren't going to be able to fix it. So the first time you come in, you want to have really good directors and really good people. You've got to have all your ducks lined up to show them how you're going to do responsible banking here. You probably don't necessarily want to mention your principal product, but you could do that, set up a bank, or you could set up an offshore bank, which is cheaper, different regulations. You could do like a bank without walls, like Everbank or one of those online banks.
Sure. There you go.
So that way people from different states could also deposit and withdraw from it then? It wouldn't be limited to just one state?
Oh, no, you could do it interstate.
Paul, make it happen. Get together with Ellen, the two of you, put your brains together, make a bank happen.
Yeah, well, we'd need to consult with people who know what they're doing, but I know who to consult with. So yeah, we could do it.
All right.
Paul?
Well, in terms of implementing a state bank, have you had any luck in researching implementing language? I know the language in North Dakota, is 90 years old, and it was a political issue then, and so I saw a bill in Massachusetts. It really didn't seem to be fleshed out all the way. It didn't get out of committee.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the one that's most fleshed out is Washington State and Illinois, those two, and they're actually pending. Both bills are active. And then, for instance, somebody wrote to me recently, and he had modified the North Dakota legislation, sort of modernized it for his state. So I'm actually working on a primer right now for how to set up a state-owned bank. So we'll have that for you shortly, those details.
Well, I have a hunch that if you and Paul were to put your brains together and come up with a marijuana bank that could be interstate, that bank would quickly flood with new accounts and would probably be one of the most successful banks in a very short period of time. It might even make people's heads spin.
That's what I'm thinking, too, that it would be very attractive. You could, yeah.
With the opening up of the legitimate economy in cannabis and hemp now, it really does promise a big boom economically, as a lot of these industries that have been, underground and illegal are going to become legal. And, there's going to be several booms and busts to come, no doubt about that. But a bank would be a big thing to help stabilize that.
Right. I hadn't realized that they were actually cutting off the deposits of people.
Yeah, actually closing the account.
Wow, that seems.
And they say they won't tell you why, but it's really unusual. But
I've heard of people complaining about such things who have. I mean, there's no connection, but still, that does seem a bit outrageous. Certainly grounds for starting your own bank.
In Colorado, the legislation passed a bill making it against the law for the banks to do that to those businesses about 2 months ago. I think, wasn't that right, Paul? Wasn't that Colorado who
did that? I believe so. Yeah, the new dispensary law there.
Yeah, but it took an act. It took an act like that to make that happen, and that's just horrible. Now we're down to the last couple of minutes.
Colorado's medical marijuana law was one of the strongest. It's the only one that was written as a constitutional amendment, so it carries a lot more weight than the other state ones do.
That's cool. Now we're down to the last couple more minutes of this great three-part presentation of the banking system, Ellen. Is there anything in particular you really want to focus on, or you want to give a shout-out or say to our audience before we wrap this up?
Well, I'm just thinking about that idea. I mean, I think that's a great idea. That is a model that might... I'm looking for a model. I mean, I would just love to see one state bank turn things around, should prove how well this works. I know it does work. They're actually publicly owned banks all around the world, but nobody sort of distinguishes them. They've been set up for different reasons and over different time periods, etc. But if some place that was struggling economically set up a state-owned bank or publicly owned bank, or a group bank, a community, for example, the hemp community, and then use that credit to fund things. You'd have to have very good advisors. Any bank can go bankrupt if they can be corrupted. You can make bad decisions or get bad people in there, whatever. So you'd have to be very careful to do the right things with it. But I think it's got an amazing potential because it's just such a popular subject in an underground sort of way.
Well, Paul, please follow up on that with Ellen. And if you and Ellen happen to come up with a banking model and decide to put together a banking system for the marijuana movement, please find some way to get me on the board or to hire me as a teller.
I understand. Well, I don't know if I'm the right person to set up a bank myself. I'm not. Don't have deep pockets like that. Even though I have 100 employees, it's kind of not a high profit margin business. But
well, maybe you might.
Anyway, we do help a lot of people. We've helped 150,000 people across the country. But I think there are people out there who definitely could do this. And I think between us, we know who a lot of those people are.
I think it's promising.
Well, I want to thank you both for being part of the show tonight. Ellen, we'd like to have you back again sometime in the future to talk about your other books as well. You've been a real joy to be part of our family.
Oh, great. I've enjoyed being part of your family.
And Paul?
I've really enjoyed it too. Thank you.
And Paul, you'll be back again a week from Monday, isn't that right, when we think with Gateway Galbraith?
Yeah, I haven't confirmed that yet. We'll see. But I'll let you know in advance for certain. Right after the Seattle Hemp Fest. It'll be at the Seattle Hemp Fest. It's coming up on August 21st and 22nd, just next weekend.
All right, well, tell all of my friends out there that I send my love. And Ellen, thank you again. When we come back after the commercial break, it'll be Ed Rosenthal and I here at Time for Hemp.
Have you ever had a problem with overcooking your cannabis oil? You probably wanted to rip your hair out when you burned off all the THC, right? I even cried one time when my brownies failed to make a good impression at the party. Well, I stopped crying when I found Magical Butter. Magical Butter is a device with a microprocessor-controlled program sequencer. It was designed by a scientist and a chemist to precisely extract the benefits of various herbs. Magical Butter easily makes botanical butter, oils, tinctures, lotions, sauces, and more. Magical Butter heats your oil and your herbs at the perfect temperature every time. Check us out at magicalbutter.com because it's magical. Okay, there's a lot of science and chemistry involved, but it sure works like magic.
If you are in the Portland, Oregon area and are an OMMP card holder, then come down to Nikki's Diggity Dank Market, Portland, Oregon's first and only weekly OMMP market, presented by the Alternative Wellness Center, located at 5241 Southeast 72nd Avenue, 2 blocks south of Foster Boulevard, close to public transportation, held every Sunday 10 a.m. till 7 p.m., connecting quality vendors with patients. Nikki's Diggity Dank Market also has a weekly raffle with products from every vendor. So come down to Nikki's Diggity Dank Market and have fun while connecting with quality vendors and getting great natural medicine. If you are a vendor and want a chance to connect with OMMP patients, you can check out their Facebook page at facebook.com/Alternative Wellness Center or call 971-888-4392. Be sure to register early because space is limited. Nikki's Diggity Dank Market.
I don't know about you, but when I cultivate my clones, I want to give each and every one the best chance to grow into a mature, healthy plant. But after a few cloning cycles, I experienced decreased root density, slimy stems, or even worse, no roots at all. Growers know that reusing cloning collars results in failed clones. And cleaning cloning collars between grow cycles requires extra work and decreases root density. That's why I use Permaclone. Permaclone collars have been engineered to prevent failed clones by providing heat-sterilizable collars, which fit easy clone, turbo clone, or power cloner systems. Permaclone collars can be dry heat sterilized, pressure cooked, or autoclaved to completely kill all bacteria and fungi without harsh chemicals. Start cloning with confidence today and visit us at permaclone.com. Put in the code T for hemp with your order and receive a 10% discount on your purchase.
Headshot Canada. Based in Saskatchewan, Canada, it is shaking up the medical cannabis industry. Headshot Canada helps Canadian citizens in getting a medical marijuana license. They do this by filling out the paperwork. They also help explain your needs to your doctor and also help find the right strain for your condition. For this service, Headshot Canada charges a nominal fee of $100 and your participation in a research and development study to test the effectiveness of different cannabis strains on various medical conditions. Owner and founding farmer Tim Selinsky wants every Canadian to know that you have the universal right to a marijuana license. Unlike Compassion Clubs, Headshot Canada's goal is to get the right strain of cannabis for the ailment at a fair flat rate price for the patient no matter the strain. Headshot Canada offers 57 strains of cannabis grown at family-owned farms in Saskatchewan as opposed to Canadian federal government's one strain of irradiated garbage grown in a lab. Go to headshopcanada.com.
Free? Did you say free? Free hemp? Free hemp? Free hemp video and audio? Free downloads of all the top artists, all the pot artists on planet Earth. Interviews with all the people making the movement, making the hemp movement. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp.
Well, let's had a bowl, gut green reefer, a big fat Joe beef, much sweeter. Mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Well, mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Well, mighty don't hide it. Fire up right now.
Yeah, baby, fire up right now. Let everybody know you are a proud marijuana smoker. Whether you're using it so you don't come home and kill the cat, or if you're just wanting to kick back and enjoy a little TV, or perhaps you need it for medical reasons, it doesn't make any difference why you should not be labeled a criminal. Go to NORML.org or LEAP.cc and see what you can do to make a difference in your neck of the woods. On the program today, a good friend of mine, well-read author, somebody who knows how to put together not just a great book but a fabulous garden, my friend Ed Rosenthal. Ed, thank you for taking time for hemp.
Glad to be with you.
So what's going on out there? I understand. I don't know if you know, but we had Richard Lee on Monday night. He's, as you know, one of the co-authors of Prop 19, and I know there's an awful lot of excitement going on about that out there.
Yes, Prop 19 is it's getting very, very hot, and there's a lot of interest in it, especially, the opposition to it has actually stoked interest in it because most of the people who are opposed to it have a self-interest in seeing it stay illegal. So they've pointed out one of the problems with it being illegal because these people have a self-interest in it in being in prohibition. So their self-interest is becoming apparent.
Well, and it also seems that there are some people who just like to stir the pot and try to get people fighting, too, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's true, too. There's some of that. But I think that most of the complaints are coming from people who think that they're not going to be making as much money under legalization as they are now. So they would I mean, even though that's not true, but they would rather see people, thousands of people a year arrested in California, and thousands of people go to jail every year, just because they think that their profits will go down.
Well, I know there's also some people out there who are concerned about big business and big government getting their fingers into marijuana's enterprises as well, too. Ed, are you still there? I think we might have lost Ed. I don't hear him. Well, all right. Well, if Ed comes back, we'll have that conversation. If not, this gives me a chance to let you know that tomorrow night on the show we got Muck Sticky on the program. And Muck Sticky will be joining us to talk about his brand new CD. He put it out on Monday, and it's going to be a great hit for him, I think. There's a lot of great songs on there. And I would encourage you to go to mucksticky.com and get a copy of the CD now and check out what he is up to. He's got a handful of videos out there as well that you can listen to. And also, next week on Monday night, we got Eric Sterling. Eric is one of the bright minds in the marijuana movement. And Eric has gotten involved with an organization called Just Say Now. And I would encourage you to go to justsaynow.com and find out what they're up to. Now, I understand Ed is back on the line. Ed, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. I was just saying that it seems like some people out there are concerned that big business and big government's getting their fingers into the marijuana industry as well, and they're afraid of that. You know, oh my God, we can't let the government get involved. Look at all they've done and screwed up everything, and we can't let all that happen. And Jack Hare died saying no more taxes, and we got all that garbage going on out there too. How do you respond to that?
My question is, what's better, people going to jail for marijuana or people not going to jail? It's as simple as that. If you think that it's better to have people go to jail for marijuana, then you should vote against Prop 19. But if you think that people should be free to grow it themselves and free to use it without being harassed, then it's imperative that you vote for it.
Well, I guess you pretty much said everything you want to say about Prop 19, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
well, now,
you know, the people who are talking about big business being involved in it, well, what part of American life isn't there big business involved in? But that doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of room for the boutique gardeners and for other people to earn a living from it. So I'm not afraid of competition. I think that it's good. It's good for the consumer. That creates a better product.
Well, I know somebody who does make a great product when it comes to a beautiful strain of marijuana, and that is you, Ed. And I'm looking forward to smoking some of your good stuff when I come out to California here in another month or so.
That will be great. That will be great, Casper. That will be really great.
Well, that's going to rock. Well, Ed, you're going to be back next Tuesday and Thursday?
I will.
And we're going to find more time for you on the show. And as I said earlier in the program, those of you who are listening, tomorrow night we will have Muck Sticky. He just put out a brand new CD. And so tell your fans to tune in and that we're going to be jamming out tomorrow night to some great marijuana music. And everybody out there, this program is based in love. And with that said, remember the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Money that they spend, take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People
first bag of green to the man, okay. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Feeling the breeze, looking at trees, watching for a pie in the sky. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in the slow lane, watching it all go by. Well, since a hairy mister kissed my little sister, didn't get to school on time. Took it to the teacher, says he couldn't reach her, plays the music in her mind. Don't get to no classroom till 9:30. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Heard the tunes, sniffing the blues, beginning to wonder why. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. Sat in it slowly and watching it all go by. She was cannabis high. She was cannabis high. She wasn't feeling the breeze. She wasn't looking at trees and watching for a pie in the sky. She was cannabis high. Well, she was cannabis high. Sat in it slowly and watching the world go by. Well, Mr. Hoity-Toity drove his little doity on a route to Byron Bay. Came across an Indian, thought it was a Simbian. Hoity-Toity ran